Okay, so now that we've learned 4 different ways to solve quadratic equations, we're going to put them all together and try and figure out what is the best strategy to use on each type of problem. Okay, so let's start out with the first one. Okay, in the first one here, I see that in plan A that there are 2 terms and we're missing a B term. Okay, so the strategy best here would be solving by using a square root. Okay, so I'll put use square root. And remember when we were using the square root that we added 72 to the left to set them equal to each other. Okay, so the reason I'm using the square root here is because I only have 2 terms. I'm missing the b, and also it looks like once I divide this by 8, I'm going to get a perfect square. Okay, so now I have 72 is equal to 8x squared. If I divide both sides by 8, I get 9 is equal to x squared. Okay, and the last step would take the square root of both sides. And I get x is equal to plus or minus 3 because the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, let's try another example here. Okay, so again, I want to set the 2 equal to each other, so I'm going to subtract 6. And then I'll have 3x squared is equal to 300. Solving for x, I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and then I'm going to get x squared is equal to 100. So the last step here is I need to take the square root of both sides, and I'm going to get x is equal to plus or minus 10, because the square root is 10, so it could be positive 10 or negative 10. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video for a moment, and I'd like you to try the next one on your own. So right below where it says y is equal to 2x squared minus 80. Okay, so here's what you should have done. You want to set the 2 equal to each other, so I'm going to add 80 to both sides. So now 80 is equal to 2x squared. And then solving for x, divide both sides by 2. And now I have 40 is equal to x squared. Okay, now take the square root. Okay, 40 is not a perfect square, but I want to see if I can take out a perfect square. So what 2 numbers could multiply to 40? So it looks like I could do square root of 4 times square root of 10, and that would be square root of 40. And then square root of 4 is 2. And then what I have left over is square root of 10. Okay? And because I took the square root of 2, it could be plus or minus. So here x is going to be equal to plus or minus 2 times the square root of 10. And that's as simple as we can go. Okay, and then the last one here does look a little bit different. In this case, because we have x minus 3 in parentheses squared. So it looks like we already have it set equal to 49. So all I need to do here is first take the square root, and then I'm going to have x minus 3 on the left is equal to square root of 49 is plus or minus 7. And then add 3 to both sides to solve for x. And so here I'm going to get x is equal to 3 plus 7, and the other one, x is equal to 3 minus 7. Okay, so my answer for the first one is going to be x is 10, or over here, x is negative 4. Okay, so again, just to put a little note, this is best to use when there is no b term. Okay, that's the middle term. There is no b term. If you want to just put a little reminder, that's the middle. Okay? All right, let's continue on to the next one. All right, so plan B. So this looks like it's a trinomial in the first one. It looks like I can easily factor this. Okay, so in this case, for plan B, I'm going to factor and use the zero product property. Okay, so factor using zero product. Okay, remember that, that we did learn these before, so you can always look back in your notes and refer back to it, using zero product. Okay, so the first trinomial, I want two numbers that add up to -7 and also multiply to -18. So if I do -9 times 2, it will give me -18, and -9 plus 2 is -7, okay? So those are going to be the two that I'm going to factor to. So x minus 9 and x plus 2. Okay, so now solving for x, I'm going to set each one equal to 0. So x minus 9 is equal to 0, and also x plus 2 is equal to 0. So solving for x in each case, the first one is x is equal to 9, or x is equal to -2. Okay? All right, in number 2, we're also going to use factoring in this case and setting equal to 0. So here I'm going to set it equal to 0 and factor out what I can. I see that they both have an x, so I'm going to take out the x. And then I'll have left x plus 6. Okay? So now I can set each part of this equal to 0. Okay, so the first one is x is equal to 0, so I'm actually done here. And then the other is x plus 6 is equal to 0. And solving, I get x is equal to -6. Okay, so here I can have 0 or -6. All right, for the last one, I'd like you to pause the video for a moment. So we see here that we're using a trinomial, so let's try and factor this trinomial. Okay, so here we want two numbers that multiply to -210. Okay, remember when we have a coefficient, we have to multiply here. And then we want two numbers that add up to the middle term, which is the number 1. Okay, so -14 times -15, -14 times 15 adds up to 210. And -14 plus 15 adds to 1. Okay, so when we have this coefficient that looks like this, we first need to rewrite the first term, and then we're going to break apart the second term. So let me erase over here to -14x plus 15x minus 2. Okay, so the numbers that we're using here, we're putting into the center. Okay, from here, I'm going to group each term, or each set of terms, and factor what I can. Okay, so I see that in the first group, I can factor out a 2 and also an x. So what I have left over is 2 times 5x minus 2 times 7 will give me 14. Okay, in the other one, I see that they are both negative, so I can factor out negative, and then 15 and 2. Oops, sorry about that. This is positive 15, okay? So I'm just going to continue on add, and I can't take anything out of 15x minus 2. Okay? So that means there's just 1 on the outside. So the outside terms are going to be 2x plus 1, because 1 times anything is whatever is inside. And the other one here, they don't match up yet. So I need to figure out what else I can take out. Okay, so I see that I run into a problem this one because I can't factor anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and try and redo this. Okay, I'm going to change the order of these because I think that if 15 is with 10 and 14 is with 2, I can factor out a little bit more. Okay, so this won't erase over here, so I'm going to write it over to the right. Okay, so I'm going to redo this problem. Okay, so I know that I'm using negative 14 and positive 15, but I'm going to write it in a different order. So I'm going to do 10x squared plus 15x minus 14x minus 2. Okay, so sorry guys, but you might run into this problem and it's good to realize how to fix it. Okay, so I'm still grouping the same way, but now when I factor out 10 and 15, I know I can take out a 5 from both. They both have an x. So what's left here is 5 times 2x, it gives me 10, and plus 5 times 3 will give me 15. I already took out the x. From the second one, I can take out a 2, and I'll have 7x left over, plus I see the problem. This is 21. I've been writing 2 the whole time. Okay, so from 14 and 21, I can actually take out a 7. Okay, so this number on the outside should be 7. So I'm taking out 7 from 14 and 21. So 7 times 2 gives me 14, and then 7 times 3, so plus 3, sorry. Okay, so now what I have left over is going to be 5x minus 7. Okay, because I took out a negative there. And then times 2x plus 3. Okay, now each one of these is going to be set equal to 0. So 5x minus 7 equals 0. And also 2x plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so solving for each one, I add 7 and divide by 5, and I get x is equal to 7/5. Or over here, subtract 3 and divide by 2, and x is equal to negative 3 over 2. So these should be both of your answers. Okay, sorry about the confusion earlier. Forgot to write it as 21. Okay, again, when is this best to use? It's best to use when the trinomial will factor, okay? So when the trinomial will factor. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, plan C. The other thing that we learned was completing the square. Okay, so complete the square. Okay, so we use this when we can't factor, when we want to try and make C into a perfect square in order to factor it. Okay, so remember in this one we used negative b over 2a. Sorry. We didn't use that. We used b divided by 2 squared. Okay, so in this case, b is negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And negative 3 squared is 9. Okay, so I want this c term to become 9. So in order to do that, I need to add 8 to both sides. Okay, this becomes 0 and plus 8. Okay, so here now I have 8 is equal to x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay, now I need to factor, and this trinomial I can factor because negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, the number I chose, and negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6. So I'm going to use x minus 3 for both of these is equal to 8. And I know that when I have 2 of the same term, I can just write it as x minus 3 squared. is equal to 8. Okay? And then the last step here would be take the square root of both sides. Okay, on the left side, on the right, I'm just going to have x minus 3. And then on the right, I can simplify the square root of 8 to be square root of 4 times square root of 2. Okay, so the square root of 4 is plus or minus 2, and then left over square root of 2. Sorry, it's kind of running and I can't erase this down here, so I'm just going to move over. Okay, so now I have plus or minus 2 square root of 2 is equal to x minus 3. And then last step, solve for x. So I have x is equal to 3 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 2. Okay? So just remember that this actually is two different answers. If you do 3 plus 2 square root of 2 or minus. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and erase this so I have room next time when I write. All right, moving down to the bottom just to make sure we know when we're using this. Okay, when the a term is equal to 1, it's good to use this. And also when the middle term, b, is an even number, because we can quickly divide it in half and square it and figure out the c term. Okay, and then the last one that we just went over is the quadratic formula. Okay, so quadratic formula, you're going to use this when nothing else will work. The quadratic formula. Okay, so we see that we can't easily factor this. The middle term is an odd number. So it's just more challenging, difficult problem, and we're going to get an answer that's not a whole number. Okay, so in this case, we want to use quadratic formula. So quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and fill in what I know. I know a is 1, b is negative 7, and c is negative 2. Okay, so negative b would be 7 plus or minus b squared. Negative 7 times negative 7 is 49. Minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So 2 times 1. Okay, simplifying in the next group, I have 7 plus or minus the square root. Negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. Okay, so 49 plus 8 is going to give me 57 underneath the square root over 2. Okay, and this is your answer for x. I need to check to see if I can simplify, but there's nothing I can. I can't simplify the square root under 57. And then 7 and 2 don't cancel out either. Okay, I'm going to skip over the last one because I don't have room to write. So again, when should you use this? When plans A, B, and C won't work. Okay, so this was kind of just a review to make sure that we remember all 4 plans and to figure out what's the best strategy to use in each type of quadratic equation. Okay, down here we're going to work on these in class, numbers 1 through 6.